Checking your oil level is one of the often forgotten things that pretty much every driver should be doing, but many don't really know how. So in this video, I want to walk you through how to check your oil, including even the basics of things like opening your bonnet in case you're not sure. And I want to show you or talk you through the process of doing it both with a physical dipstick and if your car has a digital way of doing it, talk through that as well. So first things first, you need to pop your bonnet. You can do that with the lever that is almost always in either the driver or passenger side footwell. In the Mini's case, it is a little lever, fairly small, that's on the door frame or the door pillar where the door meets the body of the car, just under the glove box, and it folds outwards towards the door. In my S4's case, it's a fairly large handle in the same place, but instead folds upwards towards, well, yourself as you pull it up. I should make it clear that some, especially newer cars, do now have an easy access method where you actually pull that lever twice. So you lift it up, let it go down again, and then lift it up again, and it unlatches the two separate safety mechanisms all from one place. Chances are though, your car probably doesn't have that, although I thought I should mention it, and so most normal cars have a second latch that you need to undo at the bonnet. It's normally in the center where the actual latch normally is, although in some cars it can be in slightly different locations. For example, our R50 Mini has its catch on, if you're looking at the car from the front, the right hand side, just to the left of what would be the right hand side, or in our case the passenger side headlight. You feel your hand under and gently push up on the lever as you lift the bonnet up, and that gets it free. In my S4's case, it's a lever in the center, just to the right-hand side of the latch, and it's also a lever that you push up on to then lift the bonnet up and out of the way, although on some cars, it will be a lever that you push down on to lift the bonnet up. Once the bonnet is up, there's a good chance, especially if your car is relatively new and relatively sort of non-budget, that it has hydraulic stays or stands that will hold it up for you. But if your car is more on the budget end, or especially the older end, then you might need to use a physical metal rod to hold the bonnet up for you. It's normally clad in some sort of orange or yellow plastic so that it's obvious what you need to grab, but you lift it up and hook it into the bonnet to what's normally a little hole. Sometimes it's a little plastic groove to hold it up and keep it safe from dropping down on you. Now we can get to checking the oil. It's important to note that in general, it's best to check your oil specifically on level ground, as any tilt that your car is on will give you an inaccurate reading and won't be a useful measurement for you to check. If the car is on level ground, then you will also want to double check your owner's manual to see what it recommends in terms of the engine's temperature when you check it. As a general rule, it's mostly okay to check both when the engine's hot and when it's cold, but it is best to have a consistent approach. So if you almost always check the engine when it's warm, then you should continue to do that. Whereas if you only check it when it's cold, then again, you should continue to only do that so that you don't cross-contaminate those measurements. For the 2016 Vauxhall Astra that we've worked on in the past, its owner's manual says that you should check the oil with the engine up to temperature, but leave it shut off for 5 minutes before checking. That lets all of the oil drain back down into the sump, but keeps it at the right viscosity and sort of level across the board. Things like making sure that the oil filter is still full. So if you're checking that engine, that's what I would generally recommend. As for the process of checking the oil itself, that's relatively simple. What you want to do is find what is normally a yellow or an orange tab. Sometimes it can be a ring, sometimes it can be basically any shape that is clearly designed to make it easy to pull it out rather than, say, twist it off like the oil fill cap. And what you want to do is pull it all the way out so that the full length of the dipstick is out of the dipstick tube, and use some paper towels to wipe the end clean. You can then put it all the way back down and in, seating it fully as if you're just putting it back into place, then take it back out again so that you can read the measurement. You're looking for the level of oil to be somewhere between the minimum and maximum lines, ideally closer to the maximum line, ideally either right in the middle or 3/4 full, rather than all the way to the top or all the way to the bottom. If the oil level is all the way down at the bottom, then it's best to first of all top up your oil before you plan on starting the engine or driving anywhere. And second, it's probably worth checking out my video on oil leaks to find and fix any if the level is significantly low. If the level is over the maximum line, that's also kind of a bad thing, as having too much oil is also a problem. You want to either take it to a garage to get that sorted, do a full oil change so that you can get it back to the correct level, or if you have a pump that you can fit through the oil dipstick tube and drain out some of that excess, that also works as well. While you're in the engine bay, it's a good idea to have a quick check of some of the other items, well, in the engine bay while you're at it. The first one that I would check is the oil fill cap. You normally just twist that off, and you can have a look down in the hole that you've opened, but also on the bottom of the cap. What you're mainly looking for there is for any milky residue. That would indicate a head gasket leak, which is relatively uncommon to find, but it's a very quick check and it's worth doing. You can also check the other fluid levels and qualities while you're there. Things like taking a look at the coolant tank or reservoir. In many cars it's a see-through reservoir where it will have minimum and maximum lines listed on the side. In my S4's case, it's pretty visible and nice and easy to check. And you'll also want to make sure that it's the right color. In my case, I'm looking for a pinky purple, whereas a sort of bad coolant would be a lot darker, more brown. But some coolants are also green, and again, you're looking for a nice, clear, clean green rather than a kind of murky, nasty-looking color. If you can get access to it easily, it's also worth checking your brake fluid or brake fluid reservoir, again for that fluid to be between the minimum and maximum lines, and for it to be a nice light color rather than a dark brown or black. If that's the case, it's probably time to flush your brakes, which again, I have a video doing just that. But what if you don't have a dipstick? Well, that's where the infotainment or dashboard displays come in, as if you don't have a dipstick, or you just have one of those functions and you'd prefer to do it that way instead, what you need to do is pretty much always have the car up to temperature and on level ground. Some cars will let you measure the oil level while driving, as long as it's up to temperature and level, and some cars want you to switch off the engine and let it settle for a couple of minutes. In my Audi's case, I go to my infotainment screen, press the car button, and then scroll down to oil level, and it gives me a readout of the most recent level that is captured. In many other manufacturers' case, there is very similar both procedures and settings. For example, in BMW's iDrive, you go to, I think it's service requirements, and then measure oil level or quantity. And again, it will give you a very similar readout. So that's how to check your oil level, both physically and digitally. It's generally worth checking your oil level periodically, say once a month, or at least before you go on long journeys. in an ideal world, you wouldn't lose any oil, and if you are losing oil, then again, you may have a leak, which is something you should address independently of the oil level itself. But again, it's something that's only takes a minute to do and can be a pretty big savior both for your engine and for any, like I said, longer journeys. You don't want to accidentally get stranded just because you didn't think to check or top up your oil. I would add briefly that if you do have a way to check both physically and digitally, the temptation is to only ever check digitally, and while that's fine for the level, there is an added benefit of checking physically, which is that you actually get to see the quality or the condition of the oil when you pull out that dipstick. If it's nice and clear golden brown, then that is very healthy and good condition oil. But if it's more sort of dark brown, black, or generally murky, then that's something that you're more likely to want to change. Also, if you see metallic specks, that's generally a pretty bad sign, so you can keep an eye out for those as well. A little caveat, some especially older diesel engines, and especially ones with a lot of carbon buildup, often make their oil turn black almost immediately when changing them, so it's not a perfect metric, but again, it's a good idea to just keep an eye on it. So that's how to check your car's oil. I hope this has been a useful and helpful video for you. If you already knew this anyway, then maybe send this to a friend or family member who maybe doesn't know. And if you have any questions or suggestions, you have any thoughts for other videos that you'd like me to cover, feel free to let me know in those comments down below. If you want to see more videos like this one on a weekly basis, then do hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell notification icon, and you can check out a load of other videos on the end cards, including a load more guides like this, but also things like full car reviews and a number of other different types of content, so do feel free to take a look. Otherwise, thanks for watching. If you want to pick up a hoodie or t-shirt like this one, I'll leave a link in the description down below for you. And yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next video.